If you turn to Matthew 5, Matthew chapter 5, we're going to continue on in this part of it. And as we go, it's going to not just be one verse at a time, but with each of these, they're such loaded verses. I think they set the backdrop for so much of what is going to be preached as we look through what Christ taught. So Jesus is seeing this crowd. He went up into kind of a mountain. We could think of a super high hill. Again, think Ozark Mountains, not Rocky Mountains. Jesus isn't up there and like, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. So it's not like we're struggling to breathe. It's so high up there because the multitude was then able to come, and you could kind of imagine this group of people coming toward him, and then through their ranks you see the group of those who have chosen to follow him. It says when his and when he was set, so he sat down, and it says his disciples came unto him, and he opened his mouth and taught them. So you kind of imagine him coming up there, and he gets into his seat, and then we may immediately think of the 12, but I would guess it's a bigger group than that. We know that he called those 12 out of a bigger group. Most of them are not named. They would have likely been important in the early church movement. It was that group of people that Matthias was called from. And so this group of people would have kind of filtered out of the crowd and come into the front and been right up front to hear what was being preached. And let's go ahead as we start out, maybe to help you all wake up a little bit. Read aloud verses 3 through 12. Matthew 5, verses 3 through 12. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. And again, we've looked at the first two of these. The first one has a emphasis on the spirit. Blessed are the poor in spirit. The next one that we looked at last week would kind of shift that into the emotional part of us, which would be located in our soul. This third one takes into account the interactions that we have with the physical world. And it's I don't want to make too big of a point about this right here, but I think it is kind of helpful. We almost fall into this sense where we treat everything in the physical world as if it is in some way evil or tainted by evil, because that's our experience of it, right? You learn how to walk, you trip and fall, and you cry because it hurts. So then you learn how to run. and then you trip and fall and you cry because it hurts. You learn to ride a bike. You fall off the bike. Are these experiences that we've all had? So then you have a friend, and your friend starts to call you names. And that's not an experience in this world that we particularly like. So we associate this world with evil because we see wars. We see wicked people doing wicked things, whether with our own eyes or whether we hear about it. But the evil that we see in this world, we have to remember and we have to bear in mind that it is not the design of God that this world be evil. It is absolutely our experience in it. In fact, I think if we were honest, we would say we have contributed to the evil of this world. But in this verse, Jesus is kind of taking into account the present evil of this world, but the ultimate redemption from that. Like, well, Jonathan, it's just a few words. How could that possibly be? Okay, and again, I'm not trying to lay too big a burden onto one verse here, but there's a lot of other scripture that kind of goes along with this. And we'll look at the rest of scripture right now because that's what we're going to do. I'm joking. So we've looked at the word blessed here. This will be the third time. I'm going to review a couple of points. It is very important to bear in mind as we go through all of these. I'm going to review different parts of what I gave a couple weeks ago. These people are blessed. This is their current state. Now, they are not becoming poor in spirit. They're not choosing to mourn. They're not becoming weak or hungry or thirsty or merciful or pure in heart, or I'm going to miss some here, or peacemakers or persecuted so that they can be blessed. They just are blessed because those things are true of them. So if these things are true of them, then they are blessed. Okay? They're, however, still poor in heart and mourning and meek and hungry and thirsty. And you can see what I mean here. So all of these are looking toward a future time, except for the first one and the last one. Those are true right now. So this condition is currently active. The cause of it is a future point still. And it's helpful to remember this with this word particularly, or this verse. I guess we may see this for all of them, but we need to be reminded of it. That as they are blessed, this blessedness is not dependent on the things of this life or in this world. And again, this is another trap that we have when we live in a world with things in it. We see people with a lot of things, and it can be tempting to say, oh, they must be happy. They must be really blessed because they have all of this stuff. That doesn't make them so. They are not happy or blessed of God necessarily just because of things that they have. There are other words that are translated blessed that do involve more things. This one is about the condition that they have, not dependent on this world. Meek here, I don't get to do this with every single one of them because sometimes the words are used so many different times, but the word meek, the way it's used here, is only in a scripture 4 times. 3 of those times are right here in Matthew. The first one is in verse 5. Blessed are the meek. So because this is the first usage, this is the primary text that we're going to be looking at. We're going to be delving into this a little bit more. The next one, and we'll spend a little bit more time on this, is in Matthew chapter 11 and verse 29. And I'm going to go ahead and turn there. You can if you want to. You may already know it. Jesus in the verse before this says, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me." And then he says, "For I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. He could have said all kinds of things here. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am powerful. Is that true? I mean, he's God. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I'm omniscient. Is that true? I mean, he is God. All of these things, he could say, take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am merciful. I am gracious. I am loving. But he chooses meek in this verse. Meek and lowly in heart. Neither of these words conveys strength, again, the way the world, as we would know it, would see strength. In fact, not even as a lot of Christians would see strength. One other verse here in Matthew 21. I think I'm going to turn there. Jesus is entering into Jerusalem, and in verse 5, verse 2, they go and get the colt of a donkey for him, and then he's coming in, and they're bringing him in. Verse 4 says, all this was done that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophet, saying, tell the daughter of Zion, behold, thy king cometh unto thee, meek and sitting upon an ass and a colt, the foal of an ass. So they are making the way for him. And Jesus, the king, is entering the capital of the kingdom. It is established that he has the right to rule. And you guys have read the book of Matthew, and you will be reading it again as we go through it. But this would be the entry where people are kind of expecting there's some kind of a change that's going to be happening here, and his mode of entering in is a normal, sort of everyday beast of burden. This is not a magnificent war steed. This is not a trained battle horse or a chariot decked in gold. This is a donkey. Have you ever seen a donkey? If you've seen one, have you ever seen one that looked in any way majestic? That has not been my experience with them. I should have brought a clip. We went to ride horses as a Victory Club outing. I don't know who all was here, who was on that, but there was this mule sitting off to one side. And it kept making the most horrific screeching noises. Like I couldn't do it and keep a voice, but just horrific, just pulling on its lead against this post and just making these super loud noises, and just it was hilarious because it wasn't my animal, But so Jesus is choosing, the king is choosing to ride into the capital as the king on a donkey. This is kind of a picture of what meekness is that I kind of want to enforce into our brains here. Okay? The Hebrew word in Zechariah 9:9, the Hebrew word that corresponds with this is translated as lowly, and that word means in a humbled state. So Jesus here is intentionally humbling himself in this time. We're going to look at what this word meek means here in a minute. The fourth one, we're not going to be able to take as much time with this because it gets us into a context that is so different, but I wanted to at least read the verse. It's in 1 Peter 3:4, and it's talking about the character of Jesus in application to to a Christian wife. And in that verse it says, but let it be the hidden man of the heart, that in that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a meek and a quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God of a great price. So this is that encouragement for them. Hey, take on the character of Christ in this way. So what does meekness mean? In every place that you look up this word, these are the words that are going to come up. And I can give you the sources that I used for this, but if you look at any source you have, if it's a good one, it's going to say these things: mild, humble, gentle, meek is the word used for it, and basically just means those kinds of things. Here's how I have looked at it, taking into account the way it's used and things like that. I've phrased it this way: meekness is the outward choice of a strong person or thing to be humble or gentle. Wiersbe helps us a lot with this, and this is quoted often, so I mean, it's not going to be new for you. Meekness is not weakness. For both Moses and Jesus are meek men. And we're going to look at Numbers 12:3, where Moses is called this here in a few minutes. This word translated meek was used by the Greeks to describe a horse that had been broken. It refers to power under control. It's very important. A weak person, a person without strength, someone who is helpless in this sense could not be called meek. Someone who could not make a different choice it could not be said of them. And this is not to put them down, but it could not be said of them that they made a meek choice. Does that make sense? Just like you can have a powerful horse, but that horse is going to be absolutely useless if it's not trained to the task that you're wanting it for. And there's lots of other examples we could give with this. Barnes also had some helpful thoughts on this. I'm just going to kind of sum up a couple of things with this. Meekness is a patience in receiving. Meekness is patience in the reception of injuries. And then he also said, meekness is the reception of injuries with a belief that God will vindicate us. So it is laying aside the power that we have to make this choice. To give a couple of examples with this, Jesus, again, like we've looked at, called himself meek. He said, I am meek and lowly in heart. Yet he had all power. So Jesus, in this moment, and we looked at John 13 a month ago, Jesus, it says, had all authority he realizes is given to him, and his action is to get down, pick up a towel, and wash the disciples' feet. That's meekness. You know what many other things he could have done? He could have sat there and ordered them around, and he would have been within his rights. I want to make this clear. That would have not been outside of his rights. He also could have spurred on some kind of military coup right there. And it would have been within his rights to do that. All of these things. He is not powerless, but he makes that weak choice. That meek choice. I'm sorry. I need to be careful about getting that one mixed up. Moses is also called a meek man. Numbers 12:3 says, "Now the man Moses was a very meek." And then it says, "above all men which were upon the face of the earth." I don't think we would ever think of calling Moses a weak man. Think about how Israel looked to him. Like this whole a nation, based on math that we've done here in church, like 3 million people looking to him, and with a word he could tell them where to go. But he was meek in the sense that for all the influence he held over them and over the nation of Egypt at the time and the people that feared Israel coming into their lands, for all of that power, for all of that strength, he would go before God and fall on his face and say, "Take my life, not theirs." You know what God was offering him when he said that? Moses, I'm going to kill them all, and I'm going to raise up a nation from you because you have chosen to follow me. And Moses falls down and says, "Take my life and not theirs. If you kill them, kill me too." This is what meekness is. And again, I pounded on that nail a few times. Okay? It kind of needs to be established in here what this means for application reasons that we'll get to in a few minutes. It goes on and it says, "Blessed are the meek," and it says, "for they shall inherit the earth." To inherit would be the familial or legal sense here. It means to come to possess what is yours by right of inheritance. Okay, I think we know what inherit is. Here's the difference in the way this word is used. It's not in the sense that you're being written into the will. It's that the will is being executed and you are coming into the possession of what has been willed to you. Does that make sense? They shall inherit it. It's going to be, you are going to receive what has been given. Those who are meek will receive this, and what they will receive is the earth. And I want to, again, not to be overly specific here, but in the history of mankind, the perception of Earth as a planet in the universe is a relatively new thing. Earth, in this usage of it, means ground, like this patch of dirt. There are still times when you'll read books and you'll hear them call it, this earth, and they're talking about the dirt there. So the way the Jews would have heard this was something more like the promises that God made to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. I'm going to give you this land, but in this case, the land actually it includes the whole earth. So I'm not trying to take away from it. I'm not trying to say God's ultimate promise in this is some patch of dirt, particularly, but it's helpful to remember as well. As much as this verse could be twisted, each meek person is not being promised a copy of the planet Earth as their own. They're also not being promised a different planet. We will, Lord willing, here in a few minutes, look at what this is referring to, or the time frame when it is being thought of. But it refers to this piece of ground as opposed to sea or sky. In the East, they thought of heavens, earth, sea would kind of be adjacent to that, and the sea had this idea of chaos, with it, because ships would occasionally go out there and they'd never be heard from again. Okay? And then under the earth would be everything that was a mystery that didn't have to do with good, which was in the heaven above the heavens, and then but would still not known. So like the place of the dead and things like that. So what this is kind of saying, what they thought of was Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were promised this land. Jesus is saying the meek are going to inherit the earth, the place that alive human beings dwell in. This is that part that they're going to receive as a part of the inheritance of God. So the meek come to possess great things, but not through might or conquest, not through scheming or wickedness, but because they're blessed. And this is another one of those times when the order of the world seems to just be tipped upside down. Because the people who inherit large tracts of land are those who have the strength and the power to conquer them. In the book, and I've mentioned this a couple times, Bonhoeffer wrote a book, and he goes through this. He wrote, those who now possess the earth, and I should say he didn't write these exact words. He wrote ones in German that mean this. I just can't read the German ones, so I'm going to read you the English version of it, okay? But he said, those who now possess the earth with violence and injustice will lose it, and those who renounce it here, who were meek unto the cross, will rule over a new earth. So it comes down to what do we make of this? What does this mean for everyday life? Because as much as we may want to look into a future of an earth or a world that isn't evil, we're still going to have to respond to the evil parts of this world. And I would be very hesitant to begin to list out ways that you can go home and be meek today, because it would sound like me telling you what to do in ways that may not be as applicable to some people as it would to, well, me, to be honest. So I'm going to instead give you another couple of verses. Matthew 5:5 quotes Psalm 37:11. So if you would turn back there with me, we're going to kind of apply this from this psalm. A couple of verses in it. Psalm 37, and then verses 11 through 13. And I recognize I'm kind of pulling these out of the context. Please go and read the whole psalm. It's beautiful. There are verses in this psalm that I go to pray through. Occasionally, it's not on like the top of my list. Verse 7, and again, we're not going to read the whole thing. This is kind of where this thought starts from. It says, "Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for Him." And then it goes on and kind of starts giving this instruction in response to those who work iniquity here, the evil, the wicked. Then in verse 11 it says, "But the meek shall inherit the earth and shall delight themselves in the abundance of a peace. But the wicked plotteth against the just, and gnasheth upon him with his teeth. The Lord shall laugh at him, for he seeth that his day is coming. There are three people kind of mentioned here. First off, the meek. This is the verse that Jesus applies. The meek can be confident in their inheritance of the earth. That's what we've kind of talked about the last few minutes. And they can delight in peace. There's no proactive or reactive instruction necessarily given here. You notice that the wicked, there in verse 12, they plot against the just and they gnash upon them with their teeth. The idea of gnashing upon them with their teeth there doesn't mean necessarily that they're biting on them particularly, but they are. It's kind of a poetic way of saying they lash out against them in an angry or a vengeful way. But notice the Lord's response. This is the perspective that we have to keep in mind as we are confronted with the evils of our world. The Lord shall laugh at him. Now, we don't want to necessarily think about God laughing at evil people in a mocking way. But God is in heaven. He is aware of the evil that goes on all over the world, the big things down to the little things in your own life. He sees the actions that are taken against the just. He sees the actions that are taken and mistreating the meek. And he chuckles because he knows their end. He is eternal. He is omniscient, and he sees the day of justice for them. So in this viewpoint, we recognize the evil that happens. I don't know how much more time to take, but read Revelation 20, kind of the last half of the chapter. The end is going to come. Those whose names are not found written in the book of life will be cast into the lake of a fire. Their judgment is sure, but the meek will inherit the earth. So there are going to be times when meekness simply means bearing some kind of injustice. And there are going to be times when meekness means that we need to stand up to it for the good of others. And it's going to be the wisdom of God working in you to be able to figure out which one. Meekness may mean being mocked and still choosing to serve. It may mean continuing on with an action even if your motives are misunderstood. But remember, if we're like Christ and he is meek, then meekness will mean the equivalent in our lives of Jesus meeting the woman at the well, as well as Jesus cleansing the temple. Neither one of those are without meekness. But in all of this, we need to be looking to a God. He is the ultimate victor in this. And the moment we take up our rights and our arms and try to vindicate ourselves, we've stepped out of the line of that meekness. We literally lay aside our power in that moment by choosing to use it for our own selves. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. I'd like you, if you would, we're gonna let's close in prayer. Dear God, Lord, I give you thanks again, as really we should every day and multiple times a day, for the example of Christ. Lord, you know, this week all the times I've thought about Jesus the King riding in on a donkey and just being blown away by that level of meekness. Lord, choosing to humble himself, knowing the eternal outcome, but choosing in that moment to lay aside the power that he held, lay down his own rights for that meek action. Lord, and you know how often I don't choose the same action. Lord, you know the hearts of each one here and where we are in that meekness. And Lord, I want it to be true for each of us that we would be blessed as the meek. Lord, I pray that you would continually shape us to be more like Christ. In Jesus' name. Amen. If you take a hymnal, turn to hymn number 461. Hymn number 461. When you get there, look at verse 3. Verse 3 says, in hymn number 461, says, "Oh, to be like thee, lowly in spirit, holy and harmless, patient and brave, meekly enduring cruel reproaches, willing to suffer others to save." I'm going to ask Randy to come, and we'll sing the whole song, but pay attention to these words, and let this be your heart's prayer.
Please stand with me as we sing hymn number 461. Oh, to be like thee, blessed Redeemer, this is my constant longing and prayer. Gladly I'll forfeit all of earth's treasures, Jesus, thy